My girlfriend packed her bags and said, "He understands me." So I stayed silent and let success speak for me. I'm 34, and I can tell you the exact second my life split in two. She stood by the kitchen counter with a suitcase zipped and upright, like the decision had been made days ago. She didn't look upset. She looked settled. "I'm moving in with him," Emily said. No shake in her voice. I waited for something, an apology, a rambling reason, even a crack in the calm. Nothing came. Her eyes were kind, which somehow made it worse. We had 3 years in this place. Takeout on the couch while a show played in the background. Saturday morning runs and burnt pancakes. We talked about getting a small house and a dog that would hate the vacuum. I thought we were building toward the same thing. "You'll understand someday," she said. "He just gets me." Those words sat in the room like a weight. He gets me. Like I'd been listening with the wrong ears the whole time. 3 years turned into a shrug. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't try to bargain. She wanted a clean exit. I gave it to her. My hands went into my pockets so I wouldn't reach out and make it harder. She took her suitcase, her plant from the windowsill. At the door, she said, "I'm sorry." It sounded like something you say at a movie when you bump knees. The latch clicked. The quiet spread fast. The apartment felt bigger in a bad way. The framed photos on the bookshelf looked like they were staring back, waiting for me to answer. I tried to eat. I couldn't. Tried to sleep. I turned over the last year in my head, then the year before that. Had I been boring? Was I too focused on the next step? I wanted a single reason, something simple to point at. I got a mess of almost. Days blurred. I went to work, came home, sat in the same chair, and stared at nothing. Laundry piled up. The plant she left behind went limp. I stood in the shower longer than I needed to because the water was a noise that wasn't my thoughts. When I opened the closet, the space where her clothes used to be felt like a punchline I didn't get. I tried to picture her new place. Friends checked in. They sent dumb memes and playlists and said I should come out. I kept saying no. The couch felt heavy and familiar. The door felt like a dare I didn't want to take. One evening, I pulled a box down from the closet shelf. Ticket stubs. A photo strip of us making faces that used to feel private and now felt like a joke. A keychain from a road trip. I held each thing, waited to feel something clear, and felt mud instead. Sleep didn't show up. Food tasted like cardboard. I kept thinking there had to be a version of me she would have stayed for if I had found it in time. I hunted for that version even though I had no map. A week later, my best friend knocked and let himself in. "Man," he said, dropping a bag of takeout on the counter. She chose her path. "You've got to choose yours." I nodded, but I wasn't ready to choose anything. I wasn't ready to move on. You don't love someone for 3 years and just swap lanes like it's traffic. He sat with me anyway, ate his food, and left me the leftovers. When the door shut behind him, the apartment went quiet again. Same kitchen, same air, same ache. And I understood I had to live through this part before I could live past it. It took time before I could even admit what hurt most. It wasn't losing her. It was realizing she'd stopped loving me long before she said the words. She didn't decide that morning. She'd decided weeks earlier. I was just the last to find out. For a while, I floated. Work, home, repeat. My phone stayed silent except for the reminders I didn't need. Friends checked in, but they couldn't fill the silence. And every night, that silence stretched like an empty hallway, one that used to echo with her voice. Then came the gut punch. A random afternoon, scrolling without thinking, trying to fill a few quiet minutes. And there it was, a photo. Emily, smiling, holding a drink. Next to him. They sat at our cafe, the one where we spent every Sunday morning, arguing over who ordered the better latte. She'd captioned it, "New Beginnings." He'd commented a heart. I just stared at the screen. No tears. No yelling. Just this strange clarity that hit like cold water. That was her new beginning. And I was still living in our ending. I put my phone down and sat there, breathing slow. That was the moment something shifted. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was just done. She moved in with him, I thought, but I've been living with her ghost. That night, I made a decision. I deleted our photos, blocked her number, unfollowed everything. The walls didn't feel any less empty, but they stopped echoing her name. And for the first time since she left, I didn't cry. I grabbed a notebook, opened to a blank page, and wrote one line. She walked out on me. I'll walk into my new life. It didn't feel dramatic, just true. So I started walking. Literally. I laced up my old sneakers and ran. Not to chase anything, but to leave something behind. Every mile, I burned through a little more pain. After a week, I signed up for a boxing class. After 2, I stopped checking my phone waiting for a message that wasn't coming. I began saying yes to small things. Dinner with friends. A weekend hike. A late-night movie alone. It wasn't some movie-style glow-up. No grand reveal. Just slow, steady progress. At work, I took extra shifts. Not because I needed distraction, but because I wanted purpose again. I'd spent months trying to understand why she left. Now, I was learning what it felt like to stay with myself. Still, I won't lie, she lingered in the edges. In songs we used to hum. Maybe that's what kept me moving. The idea that one day, she'd see the life I built and know she traded something real for a thrill. By the time summer rolled in, the pain had dulled into something manageable. I wasn't over it, but I wasn't under it anymore either. I'd built a rhythm, early runs, real food, steady sleep. My world didn't revolve around what I'd lost. It was growing from what I'd learned. And just when I started to believe my story had turned the page, life reminded me, some chapters don't end that easily. Because months later, when things were finally falling into place, Emily came back. It had been 6 months. 6 months since I'd deleted every trace of her. By then, my life had shape again. My apartment, once a museum of what used to be, now looked like mine. A few new plants, clean counters, photos from trips I took solo. The silence had changed, too. It didn't taunt me anymore. It grounded me. I wasn't surviving her absence. I was living in my presence. I'd started saving for a place of my own. Bought a camera. She used to laugh when I talked about photography, said I'd never have time for it. Now, weekends were filled with city lights and sunsets. Funny how life gives back when you stop begging it to return what's gone. Then, one Friday night, while I was packing for a short road trip, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. The message was short. "Hey, it's me. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a moment. The flood of old memories is trying to crawl back in. For a heartbeat, it felt like I was standing in that kitchen again. Same voice, same calm, but I wasn't that man anymore. I didn't reply. If she wanted to talk, she could call. An hour later, she did. Her voice came through small, quiet. Not the steady tone from that day she left. This one carried cracks. "Hi," she said. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "He wasn't who I thought he was." I didn't rush in with questions. I just listened. She told me how, after she left, things moved fast, faster than she'd expected. They got a place together. She quit her job to move closer to him. He promised they'd build a life, but what she got was distance. Rules about who she could see, what she could do. Cold dinners, silent weekends. And then one day, he just stopped coming home. Turned out, she wasn't the only one. Her voice cracked when she said it. He left me for someone else. I stayed quiet. Not out of satisfaction, not out of spite, but because nothing I could say would fix that kind of wound. "It all happened so fast," she continued. "I thought we were supposed to be happy, but all I do is miss you." For a moment, that old ache stirred. That pull to make things okay. But I looked around, at the small apartment I'd built, the camera bag on the table, the quiet peace I'd fought for, and realized something clear. She wasn't missing me. She was missing stability. The version of love she'd once walked away from. Her voice softened. "I don't even know if I deserve to say this, but I'm sorry. I really am." I took a deep breath and finally spoke. "Emily, I'm not the same man you left." She paused. "I know," she said. "That's why I called." We talked for a few more minutes. Not as lovers, not even as exes, but as people who'd finally stopped pretending the past could be rewritten. Before hanging up, she asked quietly, "Would you meet me? Just to talk, in person?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to keep the door closed for good. But another part, the one that wanted peace, not payback, said yes. So we agreed to meet for coffee. Not to start over, but to finally understand how it all really ended. We met on a cloudy afternoon, at a small cafe tucked in a quiet corner of town. Not our usual spot. This one had no history, no ghosts sitting between us. I arrived first, found a table by the window, and ordered black coffee. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. Not because she'd changed her hair or her clothes, but because the light she used to carry was dimmed. "Hey," she said softly, taking the seat across from me. "Hey." There was no tension, the kind that comes after a storm when you finally stop fighting the rain. For a while, we sat in silence. The sound of clinking cups around us filled the space we didn't know how to. Finally, she spoke. "I thought the grass would be greener," she admitted. "I thought I needed more excitement, more passion, but all I found was more noise." Her eyes drifted to the window. "You know what's funny? I used to think stability was boring. Turns out, it's rare." I nodded but didn't say much. She kept talking, like she'd been rehearsing this conversation in her head for months. "I was chasing a feeling," she said. "Not a person. I wanted to feel alive again, but I didn't realize how much life you gave me just by being there." It was honest, maybe even brave, but it didn't rewrite what happened. I told her about my side. The long nights, the empty rooms, the constant replaying of every word she'd said. How, for a while, I thought if I'd done one thing differently, she might have stayed. But then, I said, "I stopped waiting for you to come home." And that's when I started living again. She smiled faintly, sadness in her eyes. You look peaceful, happier. I am, I said simply. Then came the question I knew was coming, the one she'd built up to the whole time. Can we start over? Her voice was small, careful, like she already knew the answer. I looked at her, really looked. The person sitting across from me wasn't the same woman I loved, and I wasn't the same man who waited at that kitchen counter. For a second, my heart tugged. The old part of me wanted to reach across the table, hold her hand, and believe it could all go back. But the wiser part, the one that learned to stand alone, knew better. I leaned back, took a slow sip of coffee, and said, You left to find something better. I stayed and became someone better. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't argue. She just nodded, hands clasped together, as if holding herself still. I don't blame you, she whispered. You deserved more than how I left. It's not about blame, I said. It's about learning. You made your choice, and I made mine after. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small photo, one from our old apartment. Us on the couch, smiling, her head on my shoulder. She pushed it across the table. You can keep it, she said. I don't need it anymore. I slid it back gently. Neither do I. We both smiled. Not the way we used to, but the way people do when they finally let go. Outside, the sky started to clear. And for the first time, I didn't feel the weight of what was lost, just gratitude for what I'd gained. As we stood to leave, I realized something simple but powerful. Closure doesn't come from fixing the past. She stood beside the table, holding her bag, eyes wet but steady. I could see the reflection of everything unsaid in them. Regret, acceptance, maybe even a bit of relief. She took a breath, then looked at me the way people look when they know they're saying something for the last time. You really did become someone better, she said quietly. I smiled, not with pride, but peace. Yeah, I said. I had to. We stood there a moment longer, unsure how to end something that ended long ago. She shifted slightly, her voice breaking the silence. I hope you find someone who never makes you question your worth. It hit deeper than I expected, not because I needed the hope, but because I already had what she was wishing for. I did, I said, meeting her eyes. Myself. For a second, she blinked, like she was trying to process it. How someone she once left broken could sound so calm. No bitterness, no sarcasm, just truth. She nodded, lips pressed together, and turned toward the door. I didn't follow. Didn't watch her walk away this time. There was no need. She wasn't taking anything with her, not my peace, not my purpose. When the door closed, I sat back down, let out a slow breath, and looked around the cafe. It was just another Friday, people laughing, ordering, living. And I was part of it again, not stuck in memory, not buried in what-ifs. Just present. Walking home, the air felt lighter. The world hadn't changed, but I had. Every street we once walked together felt new again. In my apartment, I set my keys down, kicked off my shoes, and took one long look around. This place, once filled with reminders of her, had become proof of me. Clean counters, photos from hikes, a half-finished book on the coffee table, traces of a man who didn't just survive heartbreak, he grew through it. And that's when it clicked. She didn't break me. She redirected me. All those nights staring at the ceiling, all those mornings running to quiet the noise, they led me here. To stillness, to strengthen, to a life that wasn't built around needing someone else to stay. People sometimes ask what happened, why it ended, how I moved on. I tell them the truth. She walked out with a suitcase. I walked out with strength. Because love doesn't always end in flames. Sometimes it fades in silence, and you're left holding the pieces, unsure what to do. But if you're patient enough, you realize those pieces don't just belong to a broken heart. They're building blocks for a better one. She moved in with someone else, hoping to find a different kind of love. But love without growth doesn't last. And the life I built afterwards, the one filled with purpose, health, friends, and peace, it's something she'll never touch again. I don't hate her. I don't wish her pain. I just hope she finds the kind of truth I did. That the person you lose isn't always your tragedy. Sometimes, they're your turning point. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.